Hi watch friends, and thanks for tuning in again. Today we are going to take a look at yet another watch from my very own collection. And this is a very special and limited watch. And we are talking about the Tissot PRX Arctic Sky from the company IFLW. And I find this a very overpriced, but on the same time a very special and awesome watch. And it was just one of those watches that I couldn't resist because of that special dial. I mean, look at it. It's really like a work of art. Now, although I like the standard Tissot PRX lineup, there wasn't a color of choice at the time that drawn me in for some reason. But when I saw the Arctic Sky, I was sold, despite being so overpriced. So let's find out why. The star of the show here is obvious today. I mean, look at this beautiful dial. I find it gorgeous, and that is the reason why I've paid far too much money for a watch with a quartz movement. Not that I have anything against quartz, but everything should have its price. Now, the dial was the only reason that it could justify the price in my mind. Nah, almost then. But I will come back later on that subject. But looking back at the dial, we see a real work of art. And it is a real work of art, because it is hand painted by the dial artist. He was already painting dials long before he teamed up with IFLW. So check out the website from IFL. They have amazing and very cool watch designs, and yeah, they have lots of other different styles as well these days. So check them out. They are very cool and unique. Now, the dial artist was painting dials already for a much longer time, as I mentioned, and I can remember seeing some cool watches that were hand painted by him, like several Rolex watches, but also dials from Grand Seiko. The version that I have here on my 6.7 inch wrist is the Arctic Sky. It is a brushed silver dial with gold faceted hour markers that are lume filled apparently. Same goes for the hands. The hands have an attractive finish where we can see a higher section that has a polished finishing on the edges of the hands, and the lower mid section has a brush finishing, whereas the second hand is kept more simple. Round the outer edge of the dial we can see a simple black minute track, and at the 3 o'clock position we can see a cutout for the date window. The faceted and polished hour markers catches the light nicely, and they give a nice glistering and also contrast to the brush surfaces of the silver dial without distracting too much. The legibility is okay, but this isn't going to score the high score here in this department. The gold colored hands are just not always contrasty enough against the silver dial. Then the part that will draw you probably into this dial is the explosion of colors that was unleashed by the dial artist. Each drip of paint is put on the dial with different pencils, making this a truly vibrant, lively and artistic looking watch. Moving on to the bezel, the Tissot PRX Arctic Sky features a polished finish that perfectly complements the dial. It adds a touch of sophistication to the electric 70s styled case that is bold and sharp in design. The bezel is thin and simple, which is a positive choice here with all those other details that are demanding attention. What helps the legibility of the PRX is the excellent anti-reflective coating of the crystal. The crystal is slightly raised above the bezel, and it has a facet on the edge of the flat sapphire crystal. Also no surprises here, and that keeps the overall look balanced and in keeping with the style of the PRX from the 1970s, where this watch drew inspiration from. The push-pull crown is signed and the knurling is simple but grippy, but because the 4.5mm size crown is slightly recessed into the case, I just can't get my fingers around it easily. Okay, now let's kill the lights and see how this colorful watch glows in the dark. As expected, the lume isn't the strong point of this watch, and that's okay for me personally, but it would have been nice to have a more potent application on the markers and the hands. In this case and with this particular dial design, it would have been maybe even better to have no lume at all. The integrated bracelet has a very attractive play with the light because of the vertical fine brushing. At the center of the links we can see a polished edge between the links that adds even more to the light play. This makes the bracelet one of those cool details of this watch that makes it stand out on the wrist. The taper is quite extreme and the width goes from 27mm from the case down to 18mm at the butterfly clasp. At the underside of the bracelet we also can see the logo from Tissot. As you can see, I have used two half links for sizing and these are included with the watch. For sizing the bracelet we have a pin and a collar system. Now I wear my bracelets a little loose sometimes, and with this watch I wear it even more loose than usual, and the reason for this is because it adds to the comfort. But as a trade-off it sometimes can look a little bit off on my 6.7-inch wrist. This is because the first link flares out and is fixed onto the case, which makes the case overhang a little bit on my wrist sometimes, which is not really visually pleasing. And this is one of those things that you will need to keep in mind with the 40mm case of the PRX. It makes the effective lug-to-lug much bigger with a 51.5mm, including the first link. And now that we are already covering some measurements, let's take a look at the specifications of this watch. Powering the Tissot PRX is a reliable Swiss quartz movement from ETA, the caliber F06115. It has a battery life of nearly 6 years and it has a low battery indicator where the battery end of life is indicated by the seconds hand by making 4-second jumps. While quartz movements are known for their accuracy and low maintenance, it's worth noting that the movement in this particular watch performs very good. It's hitting all the markers quite well, so that is something that you'll need to keep in mind with the Tissot PRX quartz models. If we then look at the accuracy of this movement, we see a deviation of 10 to 15 seconds a month, which is very good comparing it with a mechanical or a automatic watch. Unfortunately, the Tissot PRX Arctic Sky is a limited edition with only 100 pieces ever produced. And yeah, unfortunately they are all sold out. However, its exclusivity only adds to its allure, and as time passes by it will undoubtedly become even more special. As for the price, this watch was listed for 990 euros. You can still find them on Chrono24, but for much more than the list price. Normally you must be crazy, right, to pay that amount of money for a quartz PRX. But for me this was the exception, and that's the funny thing with watches. I felt and still feel that this is a very special watch because of that dial. So I don't regret it at all, but I really enjoy this watch and wear it mostly during the summer holidays at the pool or at the bar. For me it is a very special watch and it just looks very cool in the summer. Now, I hope that you enjoyed the review. My name is Dick, have a great weekend and I will see you all on the next one. Fijn weekend allemaal!